Welcome all, and thanks for listening. This screen shows a cover slide, the first of 13 slides. There is a picture of two Filipinos with disabilities moving through a street. This presentation provides a brief overview of relevant elements and integrates migration, development, and disability. The presentation focuses on migration from a Philippine perspective, but provides global and regional context where necessary. The talk gives an outline of the current context to give both disability and migration practitioners a simple overview of the context and landscape in which they operate in. Slide 2 of 13, and is the first of 3 slides on the disability overview. The disability situation. Persons with disability have historically been viewed as objects of charity and medical treatment. These are sometimes described as the individual model of disability or the medical model of disability. This legacy has led to the exclusion, marginalization, and stigmatization of persons with disability in mainstream society. This has impacted upon this diverse group's collective rights, such as their freedom of movement. Slide 3 of 13, and is the second of 3 slides on the disability overview. Some notable disability figures are that 15% of the world's population has a disability, and with increasing life expectancy, the global population is expected to rise, meaning there will be more persons with disabilities. Currently, 80% of persons with disabilities are living in developing countries, and 690 million of these in Asia and the Pacific. In the Philippines, the Census of Population and Housing suggests that 8.7% of the population has at least one domain of functional difficulty. This is around 8.5 million persons who are 5 years of age and older. Slide 4 of 13, and is the third of 3 slides on the disability overview. Globally, persons with disabilities are disproportionately represented among the poor, face an increased risk of being in poverty, face significant challenges in social inclusion, have a 36% employment rate compared to 60% of persons without disability. One of my favorite quotes that frames disability is from Flowers, who states, "The world that we inherit is a world made ready for the able body. The able body is the orientation from which the world unfolds." This means that persons with disabilities constantly have to adapt to the world created for persons without disabilities, instead of the world making adaptations to fit them. Slide 5 of 13. The chart will be described and is the first of 4 slides on the migration overview. Migration holds a profound position in society as historically it has been a major part of the human experience. Labour migration is widely recognised as a source of prosperity, innovation and sustainable development in our globalised world, and that these positive impacts can be optimised by improving migration governance. The chart shows the number of international migrants by year from 1990 to 2019. By 2019, there were 271.6 million international migrants, which accounts to 3.5% of the world's population. 2/3 of these migrants are thought to have migrated for labour purposes. Slide 6 of 13. The chart will be described and is the second of 4 slides on the migration overview. In regards to the context of Philippine migration is particularly potent in the ASEAN community, which is predicted to see an increase in integration and mobility. Currently, in the Philippine diaspora, there are roughly 9 million Filipinos overseas, or roughly 10% of the entire population. In 2019, the Philippines had 2.2 million deployed overseas Filipino workers, OFWs. There is a pie chart showing the percentages of Filipino youth who would want to work overseas. 52.9% of Filipino youth wanted to work overseas. Overall, 30.9% wanted to migrate within ASEAN and 22.6% wanted to migrate outside of ASEAN. The rest wanted to stay in the Philippines. Slides 7 of 13. The one chart will be described and is the third of 4 slides on the migration overview. So why do Filipinos migrate? Economic drivers for Filipinos. Pre-COVID-19 saw a decline in poverty falling from 25.2% in 2012 to 21.6% in 2015. The chart shows the different reasons for change in poverty incidences. The main factors credited to poverty reduction include the movement of labour out of agriculture, increased wages in the private sector, governmental conditional cash transfers, and remittances. In 2019, the total inflow of ASEAN remittances totaled almost $80 billion, of which 35 billion of it was collected in the Philippines and accounted to 9.3% of their total GDP. Remittances also enlarged Filipino families' capability set, as well as bringing in capital to the wider community. A study showed in 10 years, overseas employment was attributed to getting 850,000 plus families in the Philippines out of poverty. Slide 8 of 13, and is the fourth of 4 slides on the migration overview. After looking at the economic drivers, we'll now look at the social cultural drivers, which are woven into the Philippine culture. Filipino culture values tend to result in families' goals being placed at the heart of an individual's decision-making, which interlink with the contemporary emigration culture. Due to individuals feeling obliged to become OFWs, since it offers a tangible route for a family to join the middle class, as migration becomes a tool used to stimulate family well-being. OFWs nationally are viewed to be Bagong Bayani, or a new hero, with award ceremonies conducted for Filipinos to enhance the image of the nation. This ethos symbolically and ideologically elevates immigrants and elevates them to not only save their families, but also their nation through remittances. For instance, there is a Philippine virtue known as Kagang Dahang Loob. In English represents the beauty of will, unconditional support in times of need, often from the parents, especially a mother's love for a child in infancy. This can manifest through OFWs, usually in a parent, but also in a child, who can be required to get a job abroad to support the family back at home. It can be postulated that when members of the family with disability, particularly the child, face barriers to become an OFW, then the concept of utang na loob, which is a natural response to kagan dahang loob, and corresponds to a debt of will, with a self-imposed obligation to give back utang na loob with interest. This could lead to psychological strain as the family member with a disability is unable to pay back their debt of will to the family in a similar way to a sibling without a disability who could migrate, potentially preventing them the opportunity to develop lakas ng loob, the courage of self-sacrifice for the kingship group, which could be considered a form of social exclusion. An article by Lamvik demonstrates nicely the intersection of the independent self notion and the importance of labour migration in the case of the Filipino seafarer, which is described as a family-based enterprise. They said, the seafarers are products of and for their families. This means the primary reason for leaving is to improve finances and opportunities for the family. Usually, the seafarer's partner even orchestrates the departure. Slide 9 of 13, and is the first of 4 slides on the migration development and rights landscape. This slide discusses the general landscape of migration and development. It sets the stage for how disability operates within migration, demonstrating some of the relevant information to be aware of. There are multiple laws and legislation in reference to these fields of inquiry, in no particular order, and only a few examples. These are the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, in which Article 13 confirms that everyone has the right to freedom of movement and reside within the borders of each state, and everyone has the right to leave any country, including their own, and return to their own country. Next, the Declaration of the Right to Development. This provides individuals a base for active, free, and meaningful participation in the development and in the fair distribution of benefits resulting therefrom. And for one to obtain one's dignity, one must be entitled to participate in, contribute to, and enjoy economic, social, cultural, and political development. Next is the International Convention on the Protection of the Rights of all Migrant Workers and Members of their Family. This is to address the specific challenges and vulnerabilities faced by migrant workers and their families, and aims to establish international standards and norms to safeguard and promote their rights and well-being. The CRPD, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. This is a key mechanism in the global paradigm shift that moved disability from an individual model and health issue to a human right and a social issue. The CRPD Article 18, Liberty of Movement and Nationality, states that state parties shall recognize the rights of persons with disabilities to liberty of movement, to freedom to choose their residency, and to a nationality on an equal basis with others. Unfortunately, this is not always the case. If you want examples, please check my other video. Slide 10 of 13. And is the second of 4 slides on the migration development and rights landscape. The catalyst for this migration development integration has been the broadening of the development goals that started to include aspects of human flourishing, which later were assimilated into migration mechanisms. There has been the establishment of the GFMD, the Global Forum on Migration and Development. This is a voluntary, informal, non-binding, and government-led process that was commissioned to bring together policymakers from around the world to address opportunities and challenges, enhance dialogue and cooperation to cultivate action-oriented outcome at all policy levels. This has a civil society element to it also. Then there was the creation of the UN Migration Network, which aimed to provide a systematic UN-wide approach to migration. It supports the implementation, follow-up, and review of the first Intergovernmental Negotiated Agreement, or the GCM, the Global Compact for Safe, Ordinary, and Regular Migration. The GCM covers all dimensions of international migration in a holistic and comprehensive manner, as it had been designed with the purposes of maximizing the overall gains of migration through a cooperative approach that is based on values such as non-discrimination and human rights. This closely aligns with the SDGs. The GCM explicitly mentions being disability responsive, which are not defined here. Then there are also the SDGs, which are also relevant to both migrants and persons with disabilities, though they remain separate entities. Slide 11 of 13, and is the third of 4 slides on the migration development and rights landscape. In regards to ASEAN, the ASEAN community is positioned to increase economic integration, triggering a transformation into a labour migration hub as the future of work expands in terms of internationalization and mobility. Hence, it becomes increasingly necessary to ensure that all stakeholders in the ASEAN community have access to an environment that maximizes the benefits of labor mobility to enlarge future personal and social economic development by enhancing governance and service mechanisms to protect the rights of migrant workers. This principle has been captured in legal frameworks with the formalization of the Cebu Declaration, which was approved by all the ASEAN heads of states in 2007 in cooperation with the ILO, the International Labour Organization. There are 3 levels I want to talk about here. The first level, which is the Cebu Declaration itself. This sets out responsibilities of state ASEAN members to promote decent, humane, productive, dignified, and remunerative employment for migrant workers. The formulation of the Cebu Declaration created the second level with the creation of a new intra-government mechanism called the ACMW, the ASEAN Committee on the Implementation of the Declaration on the Protection and Promotion of the Rights of Migrant Workers. The ACMW adopted terms of reference and worked on programs promoting different themes that enhance labor migration governance in relation to the implementation of the Cebu Convention. It will be important for disability voices to be heard here to make sure that the processes are disability sensitive. The third level was the creation of the AFML, the ASEAN Forum on Labour Migration, which emerged from the ACMW, and this consists of an annual open forum whereby stakeholders from state parties to civil society organizations, CSOs, organize, review, and exchange ideas and practices. At this annual forum, collaborations examine the articles of the Cebu Declaration and draft and agree on new recommendations that arise from these discussions. Additionally, the Cebu Declaration is part of the wider ASEAN mechanisms and has even influenced several parts of the different ASEAN policies, with elements of these policies being designed with the intention to institutionalize the Cebu Declaration. For instance, labor migration is included in all 3 of these ASEAN blueprints, namely the economic community, the social cultural community, and the political security community blueprints. These not only call for the free flow of skilled labor, but also goods, services, and capital. Also, they call for the protection and promotion of rights of migrant workers, women, children, the elderly, and persons with disabilities, and the close cooperation of the relevant bodies to develop mechanisms to protect and promote the rights of migrant workers. These blueprints have profound aspirations that guide the region's establishment into the future, with the aim to live in a region of lasting peace, security, and stability, sustained economic growth, shared prosperity, and social progress, as well as promote ASEAN interests, ideals, and aspirations. Slide 12 of 13, and is the 4th of 4 slides on the migration development and rights landscapes. Diving briefly into the Philippines and Philippine laws, the Philippine Foreign Affairs Secretary stated that we incorporated the GCM in our development plan. We enacted a law creating a Department of Migrant Workers to combine all government programs on labor migration. This governance is highlighted within the Philippine Development Plan, with migration having formidable representation and influence in working groups from the established national migration institutions. Not going into too much detail now, but there is a lot of Philippine legislation in relation to both disability and migration, but not much overlap. For instance, there is the Migration Workers and Overseas Filipino Act of 1985, and also the Magna Carta for Persons with Disabilities. Slide 13 of 13. Thank you all, and for more information, please check out the other videos. You can also get in contact with us via email at disabilitymigrationnetwork@gmail.com or Facebook, www.facebook.com/disabilitymigration network.